Hey guys, welcome back to Faith and Fire, God and Country. I'm Brandon Lynette. Pull up a chair, I would say, because we have a lot of ground to cover, like always, today. And every single piece of it, I feel like, is going to matter to your life, to your family, and to where we are going as a country. Two quick things before we get into this. Super Patch, I'm going to tell you guys about liberty and freedom. Very cool. We hung out with my daughter and her boyfriend's family this weekend, and I always think about his my daughter's boyfriend's grandpa. Just because he's older and you can tell he's starting to have mobility issues. Um, so I did this really cool test, and I can do this for anyone. Like if you guys are in person, you meet me in person, I will do this test on you too because this shit is legit. It'll blow your mind. So I took my son-in-law who actually works. He's a Michigan state trooper. So he works out every day. He's in shape. He's like 6'4". He's a big dude. Okay, big dude. Um, and I did this balance test with him. So I had him stand, put his arms down to his side, make fists, and I did this in front of his mom so she can see how this works for her dad. And so what he does is he stands with his fist down, and I get on one side of him and I lift him with his fist, and I push him off balance, and then I turn around and I have him put his hands to cross his hands and put him right in front of his chest, bend his elbow so it's just directly right mid chest, and I pull down. Again, he's off balance. I put this patch on him immediately and I do the same test. And you guys, I'm using all my strength because he already, like I'm telling you, he's a big dude. I'm 5'5", okay? And I'll just tell you, like my legs are my greatest strength. Like I've got leg strength for days. In fact, when my husband needs anything done that will be utilizing my legs, we do it. Like our refrigerator in our house getting up the steps, that's because of my legs, okay? I kicked a tire off my car. No, we couldn't get the tire off, so I kicked the shit out of my legs. So I'm just gonna say I am strong, but he's definitely stronger. He put the patch on immediately, and I redid the test, and I couldn't budge him. Couldn't budge him. It worked immediately, and they were just in awe. So when I tell you this is just a constant, and this is a patch that I wear every single day, I'm not exaggerating. So if you want your strength back, if you have an elderly parent or a grandparent that you think about that just kind of wants their dignity back, this is it, okay? And if your body is in a constant low level war with itself, like with pain, inflammation, exhaustion that you can't shake, please go to my link. It's brandonlynette.superpatch.com, okay? It's in the show notes as well. This is frequency based wellness. There is no drugs. There's zero ingredients. I could put this sticker on literally anybody. I can put it on anybody's body, and it works amazing. And if you guys are not following my Listen Bitch podcast right now, I am creeping up to 600 episodes. It's where I started talking before I started praying out loud. And honestly, two things coming together is what Faith and Fire is. So please go find that Listen Bitch podcast right now because that is everything here, but it's wrapped up in a pretty package for you to take massive responsibility for your life and kind of unplug from the systems, kind of, unplug from social media and just really get moving in your potential. So that is a great show. Please check that out. Um, and this podcast is not for your comfort, okay? So if you're here to be comfortable, if you want me to try to pretend that there's a Jesus for your mood or for the weather or for whatever, I can't do that here, okay? I'm not going to do that. This isn't your show if you think that the Bible changes with the wind. It doesn't. And I'll just get right into that. Today's show, Trump just came home from China. He spent 43 hours in Beijing with one on one meetings with Xi Jinping. There was a state dinner at the Great Hall of the People. Tea at Xi's personal residence inside the Forbidden City compound. Military honors, flag waving kids all propped up. Rose seeds as a gift. Xi called it a landmark year. Trump called it the G2, as in two great countries and the new group of two, and said it will go down as a very important moment in history. This is what I want you to hear. We know that was a show, right? We know it's a show. Not entirely, because there were real outcomes, Like China agreed to purchase 200 Boeing aircraft. Trump had been floating the number 500, so they came back with less than half, and Boeing stock dropped I think it was like 4% when the number was announced. Um, Nvidia got the green light to sell its H200 chips to Chinese companies. Apple's Tim Cook and Elon Musk and Jensen Huang, they were all in the room. Trade teams reached what both sides called overall balanced and positive outcomes. And I wish I could do air quotes. You guys are listening, but just know they were there. China agreed to allow American beef imports. Both sides agreed that the Strait of Hormuz must stay open. Both sides agreed that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And none of that is nothing. Like, those are real concessions, right? That was a real movement. That was a real signal. But um, what is his name? Bloomberg called the outcome meager. Euronews said it brought Trump back to reality. Every analyst paying attention noted the same thing. Xi positioned China as America's equal. He called it a new paradigm for great power relations. He placed China on equal footing with the United States on the world stage in front of every camera present, with the full pomp of a state welcome that was specifically choreographed to communicate exactly that message. And Trump, who genuinely craves pageantry, we know that. He loves the optics of the big moments. He got exactly the visual he wanted. He got the respect. He got the ceremony. He got the welcome. While Xi got exactly the strategic outcome he wanted, which is the world watching the American president travel to Beijing, walk through Chinese military honors, accept Chinese hospitality, and declare this is the most important moment in recent history. He also made his clearest statement yet on Taiwan. And his quote, this is a quote from him. This is where I get in trouble. I'm actually I'm recording this on TikTok live. And when I say someone put up a quote, I usually get banned and whatever. So we'll see what happens. But the Taiwan question is the most important issue in China-U.S. relations. And mishandling it would put the relationship into great jeopardy. That is not diplomatic small talk. That was a direct warning delivered in front of the entire international press corps. Marco Rubio tried to walk it back, said the U.S. Taiwan policy is unchanged, but the message was sent, y'all, and the world received it. And this is kind of my take on the trip, right? Where we need to ask questions. We need to ask all the questions. But what I know to be true in following this space is that no matter what you think, love him or hate him, Trump is a disruptor and a deal maker. And I believe that he loves this country. I also believe he walked into a room where the other person had more leverage and the other person knows it. China is holding rare earths. China is holding key supply chain relationships. China has been strategically patient for decades while we've been strategically reactive for decades. And patient strategy is going to beat reactive deal making every single time. But this is what nobody in mainstream conversation is connecting. I looked, I can't find the connection. When Trump and Xi both agreed that the Strait of Hormuz must stay open, I feel like that agreement is significant because it means both superpowers have a shared interest in energy stability. That's the thread pulling on the Iran situation, the fentanyl situation, the Taiwan situation, and the AI chip situation all at once. Every headline you read this week is downstream of that one room in Beijing. Proverbs 21:31 says, "The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord." So I'm just saying, prepare. Make your moves and understand that there is sovereignty over every summit, every handshake, every strategic calculation that belongs to no president and to no general secretary. I say we continue to ask questions about China and we keep our eyes open because I have heard for the past few years from military, different branches of military, that's who we need to keep our eye on. They're playing the long game, okay? Speaking of preparation, let's just update on Iran because the situation's escalated. Jesse Waters reported this week that Trump was briefed on something being called the Circle of Death. This is a military strategy to draw a kill zone around Iran's nuclear material. And the plan, anyone who enters the designated perimeter around Iran's nuclear sites gets erased. Trump notified the Pentagon to be on alert. Bombing could come, in his words, on a moment's notice. Now I want to be clear about something. Jesse Waters is reporting on this. Fox News is amplifying it, and I'm not going to dismiss it. The Iran nuclear situation is real. You guys can follow the threads there. I've talked about it on the show, but to bring you up to speed, um, follow the last administrations and everything they've sent to Iran. You can put the pieces together. The military posture is real. The generals publicly saying we are on the cusp of more bombs is a real thing that real people with real knowledge of the situation are saying out loud. What I also want to name is the pattern, because we are watching two things happen simultaneously. Um, and can we just talk about the media for a second? And I want to do it in the spirit that I approach everything on this show, which is always with receipts and not just feelings. You guys remember the hantavirus? Of course you do. About 3 weeks ago, the media ran the hantavirus cruise ship story with the kind of breathless urgency that you normally see when civilization is ending. Okay. The MV Hondius, the Andes strain, the human to human transmission. Every word chosen to remind you of a certain season in 2020 that the world will not let any of us forget. You know what I'm talking about. And the footage, y'all. The footage hit, okay? I love that this show makes me laugh. Can I just say that? I feel like it's kind of healing for me to be able to laugh at this, but the footage, people are sharing it everywhere. You had Spanish military officials and medical personnel in full hazmat suits, respirators, gloves, full body coverage. They're escorting passengers off the ship at Tenerife, and right in the same frame, just a couple steps away, was the media camera crew. No masks, no gloves, no hazmat. Just a guy with a camera in his regular clothes rolling footage of what your screen was supposed to make you believe was a dangerous airborne contagion. And then there's the van. Same story. The driver is unmasked, unbothered, apparently unconcerned about the biological emergency he was supposedly in the middle of. This is what I need to tell you. This is the part where I do the thing that I always do, which is tell you all of it, not just the part that fits the narrative that I want to push, right? First of all, hantavirus is not airborne. I said this when the story first broke. The anti strain, the only hantavirus that can spread human to human, transmits through direct contact of bodily fluids. You have to be in prolonged close contact with an infected person. A cameraman standing 20 feet away filming a disembarkation or whatever you call it is in about as much danger as I am sitting in my recording space in my little tiny town in Michigan. So the hazmat suits, theater, but not theater in the sense that the officials didn't need them. Officials handling infected individuals at close range absolutely could use a little, like, let's put on some gloves. Okay, let's put on some gloves. But this visual, the visual was absolute theater. It's all orchestrated. It is a joke, and they're laughing at all of us. The people producing the footage knew exactly what they were doing when they put the hazmat suits in the frame. They're selling you an image. That's what the media does. They were triggering a very specific emotional response in a very specific population that has been conditioned by 3 years of mandatory masking, plexiglass barriers, and 6-foot circles on grocery store floors to panic at the sight of protective equipment. They worked long and hard on you guys to get that reaction. They saw the image and thought they were watching a pandemic. They were watching carefully staged media coverage of a real but extremely contained outbreak on a ship in the Atlantic that the WHO itself said was not a risk to the general public. And when that did not produce the compliance response they were looking for, when people across the country looked at the hazmat suits and the unmasked camera and they're like, wait a minute, like everybody moved on really fast. Everybody has moved on fast. I mean, I don't know anyone that really truly took it serious, but also there are some circles of extremists that I'm not in the group chats, right, of the extremists. So I don't know if maybe there were people panicking. I mean, Lord knows I still see people driving with a face mask on, and I just think God help them to open their eyes. But within 2 weeks, here we are again, and we're talking about Ebola. And the WHO declared the Bundibugyo, I don't know how you say that, okay, strain of Ebola at a public health emergency of international concern. First time in history, the director general made that call without first convening an expert panel. He bypassed the normal process. And right on cue, the breathless coverage pivoted from hantavirus cruise ship to Ebola outbreak. Same tone, same urgency, Same, this could be next kind of energy. And come on, you guys. Now listen, is Ebola real? Yeah, we don't have to dismiss that. There are cases. People have died from this. Confirmed cross-border cases in Uganda, with American missionary testing positive who was in Uganda. Um, and there's a fatality rate with Ebola. There is not an approved vaccine. So it's a real disease, and really people, this is a real death among people in a region with no healthcare infrastructure. Um, there is active military conflict there, and it's a high population mobility. So what I will call out is the framing. Okay. They knew hantavirus was too contained, too geographically specific, too scientifically unfrightening to replicate the 2020 response in the American population that was already skeptical. So they've moved to Ebola, which carries the cultural weight of this terrifying disease that most people know the name of. 2 weeks apart. Same same attempt, and I just want you to see that. But this time, they're really hoping you're going to comply, and I'm here to tell you, not this time. Not harder, not softer, not at all. Do not comply. The risk to you sitting wherever you are right now in America from an Ebola outbreak in the northeastern DRC is real in the sense that it deserves, like, let's go ahead and screen at the border. Let's do that. But it is not real in the sense that you should be afraid to go to your grocery store, or you need to start keeping your kids home from school, or that you accept any restriction on your daily life that they might attempt to attach to this outbreak's name. We are not going back. We're not going back. Power, not panic. Self-control, not compliance theater. The cameraman was unmasked because the people running the story knew it wasn't dangerous enough to mask for. Remember that image every time they try to make you afraid of the next thing, because there will always be a next thing. Am I clear on that? Do you understand? There will always be a next thing. Machine doesn't stop. The machine doesn't stop. And the fact that we gave them the goodies and we fell for their bullshit and the whole world just stopped living, minus like 5 businesses in the United States of America that rebelled. Y'all, this is it. That machine doesn't stop. The question is whether you do. We are not going to comply. And can we talk about our babies? We're going to talk about our kids, okay? Because this week gave me multiple reasons to, and I'm going to bring the information to you. North Carolina school superintendent was asked about a book being used in kindergarten classrooms. Okay. I homeschool because if I didn't and I heard something like this, I'd lose my ever loving mind on the school. So I want you as a parent to just know that you don't know who you're leaving your kids with. And I think it's unfortunate. Um, this book is being used in kindergarten classrooms, and it features illustrations of men in BDSM leather outfits making out with each other. Okay. These are 5 and 6-year-old children. 5 and 6-year-olds. I looked this up. I fact checked it. Okay. So we're not playing here. I checked this out. I looked this shit up, and it made me uncomfortable. I'm like, there's no fucking way. There's no way that this is the conversation that we're having right now. 5 and 6-year-old children, 5 and 6-year-olds. And you want to know the response? That's certainly something a child would see in their community. That's the superintendent's response. Like, that's normal. That's what they're going to see in their community. That's a superintendent of public schools, a person whose entire mandate is to determine what is appropriate for 5 and 6-year-old children to be exposed to in a learning environment, looking a camera in the face and saying that children in BDSM content is community normalization. No, it is not. And hear me on this, because I know how quickly this gets dismissed as a culture war talking point, and it is not. This is not a culture war. It is a non-negotiable line. You do not expose 5 and 6-year-olds to sexual content of any kind, full stop, not a conversation, that's it. That doesn't make this conservative or liberal. That is a child developmental science. It is human decency. It is ethics and values and morals, and it's the protection every child on this planet deserves. The access to our babies is not a debate. that I will ever have on their terms. You do not get to normalize the sexualization of kindergartners and call it community education. No one gets access to our kids. No one. And while I'm on the subject, let me just tell you about something that happened at the part of the San Diego between April 23rd and April 27th that I couldn't find anywhere in the media. Shocker. Shocker. U.S. Customs and Border Protection boarded 8 cruise ships as part of an ongoing child sexual exploitation material investigation. They interviewed 28 crew members. 27 of the 28 were found to be involved in the receipt, possession, transportation, distribution, and viewing of sexual exploitation material, child pornography. Some of those workers were employees of the Disney Cruise Line, specifically Disney Magic. Their visas were canceled, they were deported. 27 people carrying child da working on a cruise ship with families and your children. And one of the things circulating online, this is why the media was running the hantavirus cruise ship story. Just to give you a different cruise ship narrative, it was like a cover up. So, not just a little scare on like, can they be complied, but literally a cover up because everything that you're seeing on the media is fake. It is orchestrated. It is a look over here moment. Every single thing. I ask you to keep pulling the strings and asking the questions and searching for the truth. We had to give out a different cruise ship narrative to focus on while the real enforcement actions happening on a completely different part. Now, can I don't have receipts, y'all. I can't verify that specific claim if I'm being honest about the media coordination, but what I can tell you is that 27 cruise workers are carrying children stuff, exploitation material, and the story got approximately 0 news cycles before it disappeared. Hantavirus got weeks of coverage. I put that together. Pull the strings. You do the math. You could call me out if I'm wrong. Sure, point it out. But I don't think so. Every child depicted in that material is a real baby. Every image created was a real violation of a real human being made in the image of God. This is the pandemic I care about. Not the hantavirus, not Ebola in Michigan. The industrial exploitation of children, which is documented, which is growing, and which is happening inside institutions and organizations that have carefully cultivated this family-friendly branding. Stop trusting the family-friendly branding. Tune into the Listen Bitch podcast so you know what family-friendly life looks like. Because you are the steward raising your kids and teaching your kids and protecting your kids. Stop believing the hype. I say at this, I trust no one. So let's go a little north to Canada. The Quebec College of Physicians, the medical regulatory body for the province of Quebec, has now officially reiterated its position that medical assistance in dying, their euthanasia program, should be extended to infants from birth to 1-year-old who have deformities or, medical issues. Their words, this is their words, this is the quote: parents should have the opportunity to obtain this care for their infant. So they're calling the deliberate murder of a newborn baby care. Care. The MAID program in Canada has gone from terminal illness only in 2016 to not terminal, you just have to be suffering on some level. That's emotional, physical, it doesn't matter. Then back then when it first started, physical disability qualifies. By 2027, mental illness alone, they've got that on the books. That's all you need. It's already happening. And now infants whose conditions have been deemed by a physician to have near to quality of life to be 0 survival prospects. They're also expanding to teenagers, in some cases without parental consent, without parental consent, with a doctor who decides whether the teenager can consent to their own death. This is not a slippery slope theorizing. This is documented, decade-long progression of exactly what pro-life advocates said would happen from the first day assisted dying was legalized anywhere. You open the door, you say it's only for people who are already dying, and then inch by inch, the door keeps opening wider until doctors are standing in front of a legislative committee proposing that the deliberate ending of a newborn's life constitutes medical care. And I'll say this clearly from the deepest place in me because this is not political for me, this is theological. Abortion is murder. What Canada is proposing for infants, that is murder. God knit that child together in the womb. He knew that child before he formed it, and no committee of physicians, no matter how credentialed, has the authority to determine that a life that God created is not worth living because it is convenient or it's damaged or it's difficult. Jeremiah 1:5, believe I formed you in the womb before I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. He knew you before you were formed. That's not just some random poetry book. That is theological bedrock. Every life, every single one, from the most planned and wanted to the most medically complicated, that life belongs to God, not to the Quebec College of Physicians. I'm going to tell you a story. I don't think enough people know this one in its full context. And when you hear it today, laid against everything I've just talked about, the bot influencers, the corrupt leaders, the pagan practices being pushed on our babies, the institutional rot, I think you're going to see it differently than you ever have. First Kings chapter 18 and 19. Pause this, go read that, and come back and listen. Israel is in a mess. King Ahab is weak and compromised his wife Jezebel, and Jezebel is one of the most strategically evil figures in the entire Old Testament, has brought the worship of Baal to Israel. And it wasn't quiet. I mean, this was outright. This was in the open. It was institutionally. She has 450 prophets of Baal on the royal payroll. They eat at her table. They are the official voices of the culture. They have the platform. They have the reach, the backing of the crown. They are the influencers of their day, and they are all bought and paid for by the same woman serving the same agenda. And Elijah, who is only one man, stands on Mount Carmel and challenges all 450 of them to a contest. He says, you call on your God, I'll call on mine. The God who answers by fire is the real God. Now, here's what I want you to see where I bring this together. The 450 prophets of Baal go first, and they put on a show. They cry out, they dance, they cut themselves, they perform, they escalate from morning until the time of the evening sacrifice hours. They are calling on Baal with everything they have. And scripture says there was no voice, and no one answered, and no one paid attention. No voice, no answer, no attention. 450 bot platform having crown backed influencers, and the thing they were serving had nothing for them. Silence, because it was nothing. Because a purchased voice serving a false thing is all performance and no power. Because you can have the reach, you can have the backing, and you can have the audience. And if the thing you're serving is empty, the silence will answer for you. Then Elijah steps up, and he doesn't escalate the performance. He does the opposite. He rebuilds the altar. He digs a trench around it. He soaks the sacrifice in water, not once, not twice, but 3 times, until the trench is full, until everything is as wet and unlikely as possible, until there is no human explanation available for what is about to happen. Everything soaked, drenched. And you know what he does? He prays. One prayer, not shouting, not cutting himself, not hours of performance, one prayer. And fire fell from heaven and consumed the sacrifice. The water, the stones, the dust, all of it. And the people fell on their faces and said, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. I just want you to sit with the image of those 450 bot prophets performing for hours, crying out, escalating, tantrums, bleeding, getting nothing. And then one man who was telling the truth about whom he served, getting fire from heaven on the first ask. That is the picture of every influencer with every platform, every bot voice, every institution with a budget that has been performing for the power that pays them. The performance will exhaust itself. The noise will not produce fire. The thing they are serving has nothing for them. And the people who are telling the truth, even when you're outnumbered 450 to 1, are not ultimately powerless, because the power that you're accessing, that they are accessing, is not their own. I think about this when I see accounts with 100,000 followers spreading exaggerated stories that fall apart in 24 hours. I think about it when I see mainstream news anchors reading from the same exact script. I think about it when I see the bot influencers who will walk back anything they said the moment a check is threatened. Hours of performance, no fire. Test every spirit. Follow the money. And please remember, God can answer one honest prayer faster than 500,000 bot posts can manufacture a consensus. And I have some news this week that I want to share because it's genuinely encouraging, and I don't say that often enough. Tina Peters is getting out. I've talked about this before, but for those who don't know the name, Tina Peters was the Mesa County clerk in Colorado who in 2021 allowed a copy to be made of her county's election software before it was updated. She delivered the 2020 election, and she believed it was stolen. She is trying to document evidence of that. She was convicted on multiple felony counts and then sentenced to almost 9 years in state prison, which, I mean, head scratcher, right? I just did a podcast Thursday about how Cook County let out a lot of violent criminals who all disappeared. But we have this person, Colorado Governor Jared Polis, is a Democrat. I that's probably goes without saying. This week, he actually stepped up, commuted her sentence. She gets out June 1st. And this matters. And Paulus stated the reason he believed the trial judge held her speech and her beliefs against her during sentencing. That's a big deal. Put on his big boy pants, that's a big deal. The Colorado Court of Appeals agreed. They upheld her convictions, but they ordered resentencing specifically because the judge had improperly punished her for expressing views about the election, which are constitutionally protected speech, regardless of whether those, views were correct by any means. Polis said it plainly. I think she's going to say nutty things. I think she's going to believe in different things that are that are false. But that's not a crime in our country. So that's a Democrat governor in a very tense political climate, drawing the line between illegal action and wrong belief. We don't get to see that very often. Refusing to collapse them together. That is someone exercising the kind of intellectual honesty that I don't see enough of anywhere on the political spectrum. Technically, did she break the law making the copy? Yes. Did she do it out of malice? Absolutely not. Did she deserve 9 years for a first-time nonviolent offense? No. And it's crazy that we had to go so far to a court of appeals to get the no. But this governor, Polis, has everything to lose politically. You know what his people are probably going to do to him, right? They made the call anyway. Trump posted free Tina and celebrated. Polis denied the pardon Trump wanted, but gave the commutation. Okay, Peters admitted to making mistakes and committed to following the law. She goes home June 1st. Not soon enough. This is the thing. Truth seeking should never be a crime. Acting outside of the law in pursuit of truth, we can blur the line. There can be a crime there, and I believe there's consequences, but belief, even wrong belief, should be protected. I don't want to see people go to jail for their beliefs. And the line between prosecuting illegal action and punishing protected speech matters enormously, because if that line collapses, nobody's beliefs are safe. Nobody's. 173 House Democrats voted against a resolution honoring law enforcement during National Police Week. Ugh, this is rough. It's not didn't show up, not abstained. 173 voted no. The resolution was simple. Honor police officers who serve and acknowledge the reality that officer assaults have reached a 10-year high. Officer assaults at a 10-year high. And 173 members of one of the two major political parties cannot bring themselves to vote in favor of honoring the people who take an oath to run towards the danger when everyone else is running away. I'm not here to call every Democrat a cop hater. I'm not, but I am going to say that as a party whose leadership cannot pass a resolution honoring law enforcement during National Police Week in a year when police officer assaults are at their highest level in a decade, that party has lost its connection to the people it supposedly represents. Because the people most in need of effective law enforcement are not the wealthy. These guys that voted in this are in a gated community. They have drivers, they have people that protect them. It's not the powerful, not the people, with their own private security. They are the people in the neighborhoods that the politicians will never live in. You cannot simultaneously claim to care about vulnerable communities and then vote against honoring the people those communities call when someone is kicking in their door at 3 a.m. Like, make it make sense. And I want to talk about money again. I promise this connects to everything I've been saying in the show, so stay with me here. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and this is circulating in financial circles right now, has been openly discussing rebuilding what's called the Bretton Woods system. For those who don't remember my earlier episode on the gold standard and the dollar, I brought this up. Bretton Woods was the 1944 agreement that made the US dollar the world's reserve currency, tied to gold at a fixed rate. Nixon blew that up in 1971. Now, Bessent is talking about a new Bretton Woods, a rebuilt global financial architecture. And the financial accounts that are paying attention are noting that the architecture is apparently already being signed and documented. Treasury, the Bank for International Settlements, the IMF, and something called Basel III Gold Tier 1. I believe this is a framework that treats gold as a zero risk asset on bank balance sheets. Like, they've done it for the first time in decades. They're doing it. So I want to be clear about what this means and what it doesn't. What this means is that there is serious, documented, high-level discussion happening right now about restructuring the global monetary system. The dollar's reserve status is not guaranteed forever. The relationship between gold and the financial system is being renegotiated at the institutional level. So I want to tell you guys that this is real. But what I cannot tell you is exactly what it becomes. Whether it's genuinely sound money or whether it's a new global financial architecture that consolidates even more power in the unelected institutions, right? Like we talked about the unelected institutions, the IMF, the BIS, they would administer it. Whether it leads to a digital currency system that tracks every transaction you make or whether it leads to something that actually returns monetary discipline. The Revelation 18 warning about commerce in Babylon is not about capitalism. It's about who controls the scale. And every generation that has been alive at a major financial inflection point has had to ask the same question. Is the new system more honest than the old one or just more sophisticated in the same corruption? Proverbs 11:1, again, a false balance is an abomination of the Lord. Watch this story. I want you guys to keep your eyes open. Watch who benefits from the new architecture. We have to keep our eyes on this and we have to continue to ask questions. Ask like who designed it and what do they gain? Not because every change is evil, but because the design of money is the design of power, and the people who build the next system will shape how the power flows for the next 50 years. And I want to tell you guys something small too that I feel like connects to something large. Um, it's the ticks, and it's crazy. So stay with me because this is going to sound like it starts small and then it's going to get somewhere that's going to make your blood boil. Okay, you guys know you've been hearing about the Lone Star tick. Okay, right? It's got the white spot on its back. It's native to the southeastern United States and it's spreading north. And when it bites you, it can give you what's called alpha gal syndrome, which is a permanent, incurable allergy to red meat. Cases have risen 100-fold since 2013. Nearly 500,000 Americans are affected, and it caused anaphylaxis. It can kill you. And there's been a question circulating seriously, not just on the fringe, about how these ticks got to where they are and whether that spread is entirely natural. So let me tell you what I actually know. In 2019, the United States House of Representatives passed the amendment directing the Department of Defense Inspector General to investigate whether the Pentagon experimented with ticks as biological weapons at Fort Detrick, Maryland, and Plum Island, New York, between 1950 and 1975. Fort Detrick is the military base where documented confirmed U.S. biological weapons research was conducted during the Cold War. Plum Island is the government research facility off the coast of Long Island that has been the subject of credible congressional concern for decades. The book that inspired the amendment, Bitten, by Stanford science writer Chris Newby, includes interviews with Dr. Willie Bugdorfer. He's the man credited with discovering Lyme disease. He also worked as a DoD bioweapons specialist, and the interviews combined with access to his job files suggest he and other specialists were loading ticks with dangerous pathogens. His words, his files, his interviews, this is not internet forum. This is a congressional investigation prompted by the documented files of the man who discovered Lyme disease. Did they weaponize ticks and release them? The investigation was ordered. Germ warfare records have been shredded. Most of what's in those programs went with the people who ran them. But this is what I can tell you happened more recently. And this isn't a congressional investigation into the past. This is a one peer-reviewed paper published in 2026 in the academic journal Bioethics, written by two ethics professors of Western Michigan University School of Medicine. The paper is called Beneficial Bloodsucking. I wish I was making that up. These two professors argue in a peer-reviewed academic journal that it is morally obligatory to genetically engineer Lone Star ticks to enhance their ability to carry alpha-gal syndrome and to deliberately release them into urban environments to infect more of the population permanently with an incurable allergy to red meat. They call it moral bioenhancer. They frame it as a vaccination. They argue that since eating meat is morally wrong because of climate change, deliberately infecting the population with a permanent disease that prevents them from eating meat, it's the moral good. A disease that you cannot cure, that causes anaphylaxis, that has killed people. They want to release it on purpose in cities because your hamburger is hurting the planet. I need you to understand what this is, because this is not a conspiracy theory. This is two professors at an accredited medical school publishing in a peer-reviewed journal that it is their ethical duty to engineer a disease and release it on the population to control what you eat. This was in writing. I mean, you guys have heard the conversations, right? I know you've heard this. I know you've watched the viral videos and people saying they have the proof on this. This is something I can show you that's documented, not just what we see and hear from other conversations or these videos, okay? They have footnotes in a journal that other academics read and cite, okay? And who, you might ask, has a documented financial interest in making you stop eating red meat? You know who that is? I dare you say his name before I do. Can you say it? Bill Gates has been the most prominent and loudest advocate in the world for replacing red meat with lab-grown alternatives and plant-based substitutes. He has significant investments in Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, and a lot of related companies. He gave grants to Oxitec, which is a biotechnology company, to research genetically modifying ticks. The ticks in that specific research program were cattle fever ticks, a different species from the Lone Star tick, and that research has it remains in UK labs and has not been released. And I'm telling you that because I can verify that. The same ideological framework is here. The framework that says meat is a climate sin, that your diet must be controlled for the good of the planet, that ends justify whatever means necessary, produced a peer-reviewed academic paper calling for the deliberate biological infection of the American population to strip them of the ability to eat red meat. Whether Bill Gates is the mastermind alone behind this specific program or not, the agenda he has publicly championed is the agenda that the academic paper serves. And do I believe that the Lone Star ticks range expansion is natural? No, I do not think it's natural. Okay. Mainstream scientists are arguing that it is a result of climate and deer population changes. Oh, I really think it's connected in some way to the programs that Congress felt serious enough to investigate. I can't tell you definitively, but what I can tell you is that the congressional investigation is real. The DoD bioweapons research at these facilities was documented. The records were shredded, and two professors just published a paper calling for intentional biological infection of the public as a climate strategy. Genesis 9:3, every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. God gave you meat. He gave you red meat. He designed your body to thrive on the food he created. And the same people who want to eliminate your car, they want to take your gas stove, they want to rid you of farmers and your freedom, they want you to eliminate your steak. And people are saying is very ethical to do this with a tick. Evil. Absolute evil dressed up in an academic language and published in a journal so it looks like science instead of what it is, which is an agenda to control what goes in your body by any means necessary. Not on my watch, not my kids, not my dinner table, not my country. We are not going to comply. And I'm going to leave you guys today the way I always do because it would be a disservice to hand you this much information and not give you some sort of way to ground yourself. We talked about Elijah, and I just want to let's go there for a second. After the fire fell on Mount Carmel, after Elijah executed the 450 prophets of Baal, after the greatest public demonstration of God's power in that generation, Jezebel sent Elijah a message. She said, "By this time tomorrow, you will be dead like one of them." And Elijah ran. The man who had just called fire from heaven ran into the wilderness and sat under a tree and said, It is enough, O Lord. Take away my life, for I am no better than my father's. And I love this moment. I love it because I feel like it's one of the most human moments in scripture. Fire from heaven, 450 enemies destroyed, the entire nation on its force proclaiming the Lord is God. In the very next chapter, this man is alone under a tree asking to die. He was exhausted. He was hunted. He had fought the hardest fight of his life, and the system was still coming for him. Jezebel was still on the throne. The threat was still real, and after the win, he collapsed. God did not give him a speech. God did not rebuke him. God sent an angel. The angel touched him and said, Arise and eat. Arise and eat. Arise and eat. For the journey is too great for you. The journey is too great for you on your own, the way you've been trying to do it, alone under the tree. The journey's too great. He ate, he slept, he ate again, and then he got up and he walked for 40 days to the mountain of God. And I think some of you listening right now are under your tree. I think you've been fighting hard. I think you've been paying attention. I think you've been showing up. I think you've been calling local offices. I think you've been making noise. I think you've been telling the truth. And Jezebel is still on the throne and you're exhausted. And you're wondering if any of it matters, if the fire ever actually falls and changes anything. It does. It will. It has. But you cannot sustain the fight on your own strength. You were never meant to. Arise and eat, rest. Let God tend to you before the next leg of the journey, because the journey is too great for you. That is not a criticism. That is the kindness of a God who sends food before he sends a mission. The man who sent the angel to Elijah under the tree, he is the same God who sent his son, who walked into the most corrupt system in human history and told the truth to the discarded and to the broken and the ones who the institution had given up on. He is the God who turned over tables in the temple and called out the bought prophets of his own day, the ones who had turned the house of prayer into a commercial enterprise, who were devouring the offerings of the people while performing righteousness for the cameras. Jesus looked at the Pharisees, the religious establishment, the influencer class of the first century, and said, Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like a whitewashed tombs. With outwardly you appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones. That's not gentle. That is Eliza energy with a new covenant. And it's from the one who also looked at broken people under their own trees and said, Come to me, eat, rest, I'll take the weight. If you have never given your life to Christ, if you've ever been watching the world burn and wondering if there's anything solid to stand on. I am telling you, there is. It's not a political party. It is not a podcast. It's not a movement. It's not my rebellion. It is with a person who knows you by name, who knew you before you were formed, and who sent fire from heaven and then sat with the exhausted prophet and made him food. John 6:35, I'm the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger. Whoever believes in me shall never thirst. I am telling you, come to him. Invite him in, hungry, exhausted, burned out from the fight, exactly as you are. He's been waiting longer than you know. Recap for today. Recap for today. We don't really need it, right? It is we're not going to comply. We are not going to comply. But I will say, if you're under your tree right now, exhausted, you're feeling hunted, wondering if any of it matters, the angel's message is the same as it has always been. Arise and eat. The journey's too great for you to be alone, to do alone. It was always supposed to be. Faith, fire, God and country in that order. Always. I love you guys. I will see you Thursday.